The breaking point, the Quillen never stood a chance. Their crystalline cities shattered under orbital bombardment as the Zarati hegemony's warships darkened the skies above their peaceful world. Ambassador Marcus Chun watched the footage from his office aboard the human diplomatic station orbiting Neptune, his jaw clenched as another spire collapsed into glittering dust. The Quillen were pacifists, philosophers, and artists who had never developed weapons beyond simple hunting tools. They had trusted the galaxy to be as peaceful as they were. Marcus remembered the day humanity first encountered the Quillen. 15 years ago, when the exploration vessel New Horizons stumbled upon their world during a routine survey mission. The Quillen had welcomed humanity with open arms, sharing their advanced agricultural techniques that solved Earth's food crisis within a decade. They taught human children their luminous art forms and invited our scientists to study in their great libraries. They asked for nothing in return except friendship. The Quillen believed that kindness was the universal language, and for 15 beautiful years, they had been right. The emergency transmission from Quillen Prime cut through the station's communication. Systems like a knife. Elder Silex appeared on the main screen, their iridescent features marred by fear. The gentle being who had once taught Marcus's daughter to paint with light now trembled as explosions rocked their ancient temple. Friends of Earth, Silex's melodious voice cracked with desperation. The Zarati demand our surrender. They claim our system for resources. We have no weapons, no ships of war. Our children hide in the crystal caves, but the bombardment continues. Please, if our friendship has meant anything, remember us to the galaxy when we are gone. The transmission ended in static. Marcus stood frozen for a moment before his training kicked in. He opened a priority channel to Earth's Global Defense Council. Within minutes, every major military leader on Earth and her colonies was connected to the emergency session. General Catherine Rodriguez appeared first on the holographic display, her face grim. Admiral James Nakamura joined seconds later from the Mars Orbital Shipyard, followed by a dozen other commanders. The question hung unspoken in the digital air. Would humanity risk war with the powerful Zarati hegemony for a species that couldn't defend itself? President Elena Vasquez didn't hesitate when she appeared on the central screen. Ladies and gentlemen, the Quillen gave us the gift of abundance when we were struggling to feed our people. They shared their knowledge freely and asked only for our friendship in return. Today, that friendship is being tested. She paused, her eyes hardening. I'm not asking if we should help them. I'm asking how fast we can get there. The room erupted in discussion. The Zarati hegemony controlled 17 star systems and commanded a fleet of over 300 warships. Humanity had 47 combat vessels and controlled only 3 systems. On paper, it was suicide. But Admiral Nakamura pulled up a different set of statistics. The Zarati rely on overwhelming force and fear. They've never faced an enemy that fights with conviction rather than survival instinct. They don't understand sacrifice or loyalty. These concepts are foreign to their hierarchical society where the strong dominate the weak. General Rodriguez added her analysis. Our ships are smaller but faster. Our weapons may be fewer, but they're more precise. The Zarati use mass driver weapons and plasma cannons designed to terrorize. We use focused particle beams and guided missiles designed to disable and destroy specific targets. More importantly, every human soldier volunteers to serve. Every Zarati soldier is conscripted from conquered worlds. The debate continued for exactly 17 minutes before a new transmission arrived. Supreme Commandant Rex of the Zarati. Hegemony appeared on screen, his reptilian features twisted in what passed for amusement among his species. Humans of Earth, he hissed through pointed teeth. We are aware of your primitive emotional attachment to the Quillen. Consider this your only warning. Any human vessel entering the Colon system will be destroyed. Any attempt to interfere with hegemony operations will result in Earth being added to our expansion list. You have 1 hour to acknowledge your understanding and compliance. The transmission ended. Silence filled the virtual chamber for exactly 3 seconds before President Vasquez spoke. General Rodriguez, how many ships can we deploy immediately? 32 vessels are combat ready, Madam President. The remaining 15 could be ready within 6 hours. Admiral Nakamura, estimated time to reach the Quillen system? At maximum burn, the fast attack group can be there in 14 hours. The main fleet would arrive 4 hours later. President Vasquez nodded slowly. Then we have our timeline. General Rodriguez, I want every available ship prepped for immediate departure. Admiral Nakamura, you have operational command of the Liberation Fleet. She turned to address the full council. Send a response to Supreme Commandant Vrex. What? Should we say, Madam President? Asked Marcus. Elena Vasquez's expression could have frozen stars. Tell him that the Quillen are under humanity's protection. Tell him that we remember our debts and honor our friendships. Tell him that if a single additional Quillen dies, we will take it as an act of war against Earth itself. She paused. And then tell him that humanity has a long memory and an even longer reach. The first human warships began leaving Earth orbit within the hour. The fast attack squadron, led by Captain David Mitchell, aboard the stealth cruiser Ghost, jumped to hyperspace with their transponders running hot. They wanted the Zerati to see them coming. Behind them, the main Liberation Fleet assembled with grim efficiency. 32 ships might not seem like much against 300, but humanity had learned long ago that wars weren't won by numbers alone. Captain Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Ghost, reviewing the tactical data one final time. The Quillen system had 3 habitable worlds, with the primary colony on Quillen Prime and smaller settlements on the 2 moons. Current intelligence showed 12 Zerati warships in orbit, conducting systematic bombardment of population centers. The math was simple: 12 enemy ships versus 8 human vessels in the fast attack squadron. But Mitchell had something the Zerati didn't expect. Lieutenant Torres, he called to his weapons officer. Status on the Hornet's Nest? All drone fighters are operational, Captain. Each ship carries 50 units. That gives us 400 autonomous fighters ready to deploy on your command. The Hornet's Nest program had been humanity's most closely guarded military secret. Each drone was no larger than a motorcycle, but carried enough firepower to cripple a destroyer. They operated on swarm intelligence, sharing targeting data and coordinating attacks without human intervention. The Zerati's large, lumbering warships were perfect targets for the agile drones. As the squadron approached the hyperspace exit point, Mitchell opened a channel to his fellow captains. Ladies and gentlemen, in approximately 60 seconds, we will enter the Quillen system. The Zerati expect us to announce ourselves, to posture and threaten like they do. Instead, we're going to remind them why humanity survived on a death world for 200,000 years before reaching the stars. We're going to show them what happens when you attack our friends. The stars elongated and snapped back into focus as the squadron dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Quillen system. Immediately, Zerati threat warnings flooded there. Communication channels. Supreme Commandant Vrex himself appeared on the main screen, his scales flushed purple with rage. Humans, you dare defy the hegemony? Your pathetic ships will be dust before. Mitchell cut the transmission and turned to his crew. All ships deploy Hornet's Nest. Target their weapon systems first, then engines. I want them helpless, not destroyed. The Quillen will need those ships as reparations when this is over. 400 drone fighters erupted from the human squadron, like an angry swarm of metallic wasps. The Zerati point defense systems designed to handle perhaps a dozen incoming missiles, were immediately overwhelmed. The drones danced between plasma bolts and mass driver rounds, their small size and erratic movement patterns making them nearly impossible to hit. Within minutes, the first Zerati destroyer began listing as its engines failed. Then another. And another. Asterisk. The Zerati fleet commander couldn't comprehend what was happening. His tactical display showed impossible readings as hundreds of tiny contacts swarmed his ships. Each drone strike was surgical, targeting specific systems with devastating precision. The massive dreadnought Hegemon's Wrath, pride of the Zerati fleet, found itself dead in space within 7 minutes of the human arrival. Its weapons were slag, its engines were offline, and its crew was trapped inside a billion-credit tomb. Captain Mitchell watched the chaos with grim satisfaction before opening a channel to the Quillen surface. Elder Silex appeared, their luminous eyes wide with disbelief. Captain Mitchell? But how did you arrive so quickly? The Zerati said no one would come. The Zerati don't understand humanity, Elder. We don't abandon our friends. Hold on for just a few more minutes. We're handling the orbital situation, and our main fleet will arrive soon with medical supplies and reconstruction equipment. Before Silex could respond, new contacts appeared on the tactical display. 40 Zerati warships dropped out of hyperspace, reinforcements from the nearby Zerati military base. Supreme Commandant Vrex's voice boomed across all channels. Foolish humans, you think your tricks will save you? I bring the might of the hegemony. Surrender now and I might allow some of you to live as slaves. Mitchell smiled coldly. All human vessels, execute Porcupine Protocol. Let's show them what happens when you corner a human. The 8 human ships suddenly bristled with hidden weapons ports. Humanity had learned to hide their true capabilities, showing potential enemies only what they expected to see. Each cruiser actually carried 3 times the armament the Zerati had calculated. Missiles, particle beams, and railgun projectiles filled space in a carefully coordinated pattern that left no room for evasion. The Zerati reinforcement fleet ran straight into a wall of death. Their formation, designed for intimidation rather than tactical efficiency, made them perfect targets. The human ships focused their fire, taking down enemy vessels one by one with mechanical precision. But the Zerati had numbers, and slowly, inevitably, they began to close the distance. That's when the main Liberation fleet arrived. 24 additional human warships burst from hyperspace in perfect formation, catching the Zerati fleet between 2 forces. Admiral Nakamura's voice rang out across the battlefield. Zerati vessels, this is Admiral James Nakamura of the Earth Defense Force. You have one opportunity to surrender. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any vessel that continues, hostile action will be destroyed. The response came not from Vrex, but from a new source. 3 massive Zerati super dreadnoughts dropped from hyperspace, each one larger than any ship humanity had ever built. Vrex's laughter echoed through the communication channels. You think your tiny fleet impresses me? Behold the pride of Zerati, the conquest eternal, and the hegemony's might. Each carries enough firepower to crack a moon. Admiral Nakamura's expression didn't change. Captain Mitchell, would you care to do the honors? With pleasure, Admiral. Mitchell turned to his communications officer. Send the activation code to Project Prometheus. In the asteroid belt of the Quillen system, something stirred. What? The Zerati had dismissed as mining equipment began to move. Humanity had arrived in the system 3 days ago, not 14 hours. A small stealth team had spent that time converting asteroids into improvised weapons platforms. Each rock had been hollowed out and filled with nuclear mines, turning them into massive guided missiles. 17 asteroids, each the size of a city block, began accelerating toward the Zyrati super dreadnoughts. The massive ship's point defense. Systems engaged, shattering rock and detonating mines, but there were too many. The pride of Zyrati took 3 impacts and began breaking apart. The Conquest Eternal managed to evade 4 asteroids before the 5th caught it amidships, splitting the vessel in half. The Hegemony's might, seeing the fate of its sisters, attempted to flee, but found its hyperspace drive mysteriously offline. Sabotaged by a computer virus the humans had uploaded during the earlier communication. Vrex's image appeared one final time, his scales now pale with fear. This is impossible. The hegemony has ruled for 1,000 years. You cannot, we can, and we have. Admiral Nakamura interrupted. You made a critical error, Commandant. You assumed that because humans are young to the galaxy, we are weak. You forgot that we evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We survived ice ages, plagues, predators, and each other. We learned to turn disadvantage into opportunity, weakness into strength. And most importantly, we learned that loyalty to those who show us kindness is the greatest strength of all. The battle was over within the hour. Those Zyrati ships that could flee did so. Those that couldn't surrendered. The Liberation Fleet took no pleasure in victory, immediately turning their attention to rescue and relief operations on the Quillen worlds. Human medical ships began arriving within hours, treating wounded Quillen and even captured Zyrati with equal care. 3 days later, in the ruins of the Quillen capital, Elder Silex stood beside President Vasquez, who had arrived to personally oversee the relief efforts. I do not understand, Silex said softly, watching human engineers work alongside Quillen survivors to rebuild a school. The Zyrati are your enemies now. Their hegemony will seek revenge. You have made yourselves targets for our sake. Why, President? Vasquez knelt down, picking up a piece of shattered crystal that had once been part of a Quillen artwork. The crystal caught the light, casting rainbow patterns across her face. Elder Silex, there's an old human saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. The Quillen showed us nothing but kindness. You helped us when we needed it most. Did you really think we would stand by and watch you suffer? But the cost of abandoning a friend is far higher than any war, Vasquez interrupted gently. Yes, we've made enemies today, but we've also sent a message to every species in the galaxy. If you are humanity's friend, we will stand by you. If you threaten our friends, we will stop you. It's that simple. Word of the battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Zyrati hegemony, humiliated by their defeat, retreated to their core systems to rebuild, but something unexpected happened. 3 other species who had suffered under Zyrati oppression reached out to humanity. The insectoid Krafen, the aquatic Melody, and the silicon-based architects all requested alliance. Treaties. Within a year, the Friendship Coalition had grown to include 12 species. The Quillen, for their part, refused to let humanity bear the burden alone. They turned their incredible scientific minds to the challenge of defense, developing SHIELD, technology that would protect Coalition worlds from future attacks. They said it was the least they could do for the friends who had saved them. Captain Mitchell, promoted to Admiral for his actions in the Liberation, stood on the bridge of humanities. First jointly designed warship. The vessel incorporated human weapons, Quillen shields, Krafen armor, and Melody sensors. Its crew included members from all Coalition species. As he looked out at the stars, he thought about how much had changed in such a short time. His Quillen tactical officer, a young individual named Prism, approached with a report. Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting unusual activity in the Zyrati border systems. It appears they may be mobilizing again. Mitchell nodded. Let them come. They'll find the galaxy has changed. We're not alone anymore, and neither are our friends. He turned to address his diverse bridge crew. Send a message to all coalition worlds. Tell them to stay alert, but not afraid. We stand together now. The Zarati never did attack again. Reports from their space suggested a civil war had broken out, with conquered species rising up against their oppressors, inspired by humanity's example. The hegemony that had terrorized the galaxy for a millennium crumbled within a decade, years. Later, historians would mark the Battle of Kulin Prime as the moment everything changed. Not because of the military victory, but because it proved that friendship and loyalty could triumph over fear and oppression. The Quillen had been right all along. Kindness was the universal language. It just needed someone willing to defend it. Elder Silex, in their final years, wrote in their memoirs, "The humans taught us something we had forgotten in our pursuit of peace. Sometimes the greatest act of kindness is to stand up to cruelty. Sometimes friendship means being willing to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves." They attacked our friends, and humanity declared war. In doing so, they didn't just save the Quillen. They saved the soul of the galaxy itself. The memorial on Quillen Prime bears a simple inscription in a dozen languages. Here, humanity chose friendship over safety, loyalty over logic, and courage over comfort. Here, the galaxy learned that humans don't abandon their friends, ever. And they never did. Asterisk.